Hi, Jasmin.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
Nice.
Today we're going to talk about art. In particular, the process of creating art. So, art is a form of self-expression, and therefore, art is all around us.
True.
What is art for you?
I feel like in the most basic form, it's what makes us human in a way. It's what differentiates us from other animals. I mean, creativity and art is what is part of our awareness and part of being human.
That's beautiful and humbling. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's a wrap. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. I agree with you, and I think I easily forget that. And the everyday life gets ahead of me very quickly.
Yeah.
And I forget to appreciate art, which is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to move to New York, is to be around it again.
Yeah.
So thank you for reminding me.
Of course. Anytime.
Which is kind of leading us to the next question, and that is, where do you find art when you least expect it? Or has that ever happened to you where you found art when you least expected it?
Yeah. I think I see art in food a lot. When you go to a restaurant and you get a dish, there's the art of what it looks like and plating the food and making it look beautiful. And then there's art in the flavor combination and using the different like food or products that are like materials. And it's like a creation, and it takes creativity to make good, tasty, beautiful food.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I watched this Netflix series, Cooked.
Oh, so good.
And I least expected it to have this like profound effect on me that was creativity and art, and they really show that, I feel like, in that series.
Yeah, definitely.
And I agree with you. It's when you least expect it.
Yeah. I feel like another place where we can find art is in science. I feel like, again, you need some level of creativity to find solution or invent new things. And I feel like there's a lot of art and creativity in science as well. If we're looking at, like, if creativity comes from a need, so if everything was perfect all the time, we wouldn't need to change anything. We wouldn't have to be creative to change something.
Right.
So I feel like if art and comes from creativity that comes from a need, then science is also giving a solution to a need a lot of times.
Yeah.
So, people were sick of walking up the stairs. They invented the electrical staircase,
Right.
So, I mean, it's not art, but it took creativity to think about the system that will move the stairs for you instead of you moving yourself up the stairs.
Exactly.
So I see the connection of art and science in that way of being creative to solve a problem or to fulfill a need.
Yeah, and save lives in some cases. A lot of science is used for medicine and...
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
And it comes from creativity, these solutions. So maybe it's art also if it, uses the same thought process in a way, because when you're creative, you whether you're painting something or imagining, there's imagination also, because you need to be able to imagine something that doesn't exist.
Right. And not to be too scientific, but we watched a documentary that really showed the part of our brain,
Yeah.
your eyes and there's like space between the eyes, the part of the brain that translates what you're seeing,
Yeah.
to the part of the brain that is basically reacting
Right.
to what you're seeing. There's
Yeah.
like physical space.
Yeah, and other mammals, they're more close together. So in a way, what you're seeing has to travel in your brain to where your creative or thinking mind is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think also that the ability to imagine is very unique to us human beings, because animals can't, we don't know, but they can't, to invent something, to be creative, you have to be able to imagine something that is not there.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of art and creativity, is whether it's, imagining a building or imagining a painting that you're going to paint, or a sculpture, or a dish, and imagining what it's going to taste like, or, a melody that you're going to play on an instrument. All of these things come from the imagination.
Absolutely. And it's so cool to realize that. And also actually do it, not by mistake sometimes.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to create something, but a lot of it is not about trying to... Okay, so I'm gonna get there, but what I want to say first is the biggest thing for art right now, like the actual form of drawing and painting, is how to introduce it to technology.
Yeah.
And the movement and the transition of what art is going through right now, of how to use technology and still be authentic, original,
Yeah.
and like give the respect to the initial art form, which is paint and a canvas, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me that's a challenge, because I was born kind of into that transition time of do I just pick up my iPad, or do I now order from Amazon all the painting supply, and will it give me the same experience?
Right.
So I'm just throwing it out there that it's challenging.
The world of art and science are intermingled, and they evolve each other.
Yeah.
So the need to create is still there, but scientists are just trying to find new ways, maybe more accessible, maybe more good for the environment. If you're doing something on your iPad, is it different than using paper?
That's true.
I don't know. They both come from resources in the earth. So I don't know what's better anymore, honestly. Paper or hardware.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's a different topic. So yeah, back to our creative process, and comes from our imagination. And also, I think when you're creating something, you can also be inspired by things that are around you, which is also a very cool thing that you can look at. Like, I saw a show about robots, and again, this brings us back into science and not talking about art a lot somehow, but I like the creative part of science.
Yeah.
And I saw that in the development of robots, they were looking into spiders and how the anatomy of spiders and their legs and how they carry themselves to develop a robot, because it's somehow easier to create that movement than a human movement.
Wow.
So it's really cool that you can look at one thing in nature and apply it to science and innovation, or be inspired by something.
Yes, and that's what a lot of artists talk about, is like, in a way, the concept of like being inspired by something and then copying it
Yeah.
and applying it to something else. That's part of like inspiration and creativity.
Right. So you don't have to necessarily invent something new. You can find something that inspires you, whether it's, it can even be like music that you like, and you don't necessarily have, like, it doesn't mean that you're copying it if you're being inspired by it, and then you put your own twist on it. So
Right.
it's still self-expression. It's still you, but you are finding something in someone else's creation that you connect with and you can express in your own way.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
And one of the things that this documentary talked about is, after a form of inspiration comes a need, or almost a responsibility, to take a risk.
Yeah.
In that, like, applying it to something totally different.
Right.
And what do you think about that? Can you see yourself having to take a risk? For me, it's more vulnerability.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like vulnerability is definitely one way that artists take a risk, putting their feelings, their thoughts, their inner view of the world for everybody to see, listen to, feel, or whatever it is. So yeah, there's definitely a risk there. And I think also, like you were talking about technology, maybe some artists feel like that's too far for them to ditch what they're used to and go into like an iPad situation. But it is taking a risk, and maybe some artists find new avenues or new outlets of creation and art through taking a risk and using different equipment, for example.
And a lot of artists say that it actually allowed them to do something faster
Yeah.
and more immediate
Yeah.
than actually painting, doing,
Yeah.
the whole way of how we used to film, how we used to actually create movies,
Yeah.
has completely changed for the better.
Yeah. I can relate to that also, like, in photography, because I am a photographer, I guess.
Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes say that because I'm not like professional or whatever. But for me, like, there's a lot of times a dilemma between the iPhone and a camera, because sometimes you see something and you want to capture it in that moment, and your phone is so easy to just grab and it's right there, and you don't have to like redo all the settings for the lighting to be perfect, and the technology has made it so easy and so lifelike, and but on the other hand, there is also the art of controlling a camera and controlling the lighting and controlling the narrative more, and not just being generated by the automated processing powers of our phone. So like there's maybe not taking a risk, but just a dilemma in the creative process of, okay, do I stick to, what's conventional or what's considered professional, or do I go with technology? Because our phones have amazing cameras. I mean, there's been a lot of technology and development and creativity into these cameras that are in our phones. So it's a dilemma sometimes. Like, is it art if I took this picture with my phone? Is it a valuable photo? You know, does it matter that I took? Does anybody care if I took this picture with my phone or not? Am I not a photographer because I don't have my camera on me all the time, and some of my pictures are taken with a cell phone, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I have a lot of that inner dialogue and going back and forth in my mind. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just part of the creative process.
You know, I was actually inspired to buy a camera by having the ability to take photos and for me make them look professional with my phone.
Interesting.
And that kind of, from me just having Instagram and for years just posting photos.
Yeah.
Without really second guessing myself, and then people actually telling me, wow, these are amazing photos, and you're really like giving me a different view of the world.
Wow.
Then I decided, okay, this is really cool, and I'm gonna buy a camera.
So it opened the door for you.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's when you have your camera on you and you go and take pictures, it's different.
It's very different.
You're in a whole other realm with your own self, and you're looking for different things.
Right.
Versus like walking around and being like, dang, this is beautiful.
Right.
And like taking a picture. And I think you have more power because you have more options.
Yeah. But I feel like maybe it's just me, but I feel like there's this perception of like, oh, if it wasn't taken with a camera and, you know, then it's not a real photograph. It's just a snap. It's just a picture you took with your phone. Like there's this feeling of the not cheapening maybe, but just like it's not as appreciated as, you know, a picture that was taken with a professional camera with all the lens and the lighting and the whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's something that will change in the future, and maybe it won't be like that, and pictures that are taken with cell phones will be valid.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me, or maybe it's just a certain group of people and not everybody thinks that way. I don't know. I don't care. I mean, if it's a beautiful picture and it moves me, it makes me feel something and I connect with it, that's what I care about. And I feel like that's art, really, is it's a way for us to communicate and connect with one another without words, sometimes with words like poetry and literature, but like it's a different elevated way than just talking to one another.
Right.
You know, it's a way to put something center stage and say, this is what I see, or this is what I want you to see. Or, you know, so so if you see a photo and you're moved by it, it connects to you in some way, you know, then it's art.
Absolutely. And different things have, you know, different photos affect different people differently.
Yeah.
But let us know, photographers, the professional photo or the iPhone?
I feel like photographers will go with the professional camera.
Yes.
But
it's a trick question.
Yeah.
No, but really for our listeners, what do you think? I'd love to know.
Yeah, it will be interesting.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break.
Alrighty.
We're back.
Hello.
So we'll jump right into it. So a lot of self-expression and learning new things is learning new things. So, for example, when I took a dive into yoga,
Yeah.
it really made me like want to do research about things that are inspired by yoga, such as like the chakras and energy work, breath.
Yeah.
And with that exploration, I also wanted to be around nature more. And I was living in Tucson at the time, which is really perfect for taking hikes and
Yeah.
like exposing myself to nature. And then I decided to try and do drawings.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And
Wow. That's an interesting travel of thought, like from doing yoga that brought you outside, and then you seeing the outside inspired you to paint.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And I cannot paint. So it also was a process of acceptance of the parts of me that I don't like, the fact that that I do abstract painting.
So you wanted to do something more realistic of what you were seeing around you, and it didn't really work out.
Right.
Wow. So what did you do?
I started painting, and it's very hard to paint in general, whether you know what you're doing or not. And I met this artist. Her name is Anna.
Yeah.
And I showed her a painting that she came. I used to work in a coffee shop, and she brought a paper
Yeah.
and a pen, and she said, draw something.
Oh.
So I did, and I saw nothing, right? And she actually learned art in New York.
Wow.
Which is funny. And I gave it back to her, right? And I'm like, here you go. I don't know how to paint. And she's like, well, I see, right? Like, she started naming everything she saw in the painting.
That's amazing.
It was. And that made me give myself an opportunity to try something without judging myself. And I really enjoy painting, and I paint absolutely abstract things, and the funnest part is to show it to somebody.
Yeah.
Because they always see something that I haven't
You
never
showed me any of your paintings, Jazz.
Of course I have.
I don't remember.
I think you forgot. I'll show you again. I have them.
That's so interesting. What I really like about that is that you're not looking at it, like you said, in a competitive way. Like, oh, if I can't paint like somebody that's extremely talented and went to school for his entire life for painting, then I'm not going to do it. Like, taking art as a way to like to do something for yourself. Even like we did talk about how we connect with people through art, but it sounds like you took it to connect with yourself and to express yourself for yourself, and not for it to be in galleries or whatever, which might happen. Who knows? But it's cool that it's almost like something that like self-care. I don't know, like something you did for you.
Right. And you taught me that.
Oh, thanks.
When I was I was young. I was 16, 17.
Yeah.
And my life was changing. And I was really angry at the world of how it is.
Yeah.
And
being a teenager.
Yeah. And why, right? Like the question, why? Why is it like, but why? And I'm still like that, but a little less.
Less angry.
Yes. Peace. But you taught me, okay, you're angry. It's something that happened to you. or a person that affected you negatively,
Yeah.
write it down.
Yeah.
Like, get it out of your system.
Yeah.
And I started writing poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. And thank you, because it helped me. Yeah, I think it really helps when you realize that there is energy within you. I think that's what I've learned from yoga most, is like, we are, chargeable batteries. We hold energy within us.
Yeah.
And it's good to have the outlet.
Right.
To kind of release that energy.
Yeah, and what I've also see, like, in writing something that's like, if something's bothering you, you feel agitated, you feel mad, writing it down is healing, you know. It helps you get through things and understand yourself better, organize your thoughts, and express yourself in a way that maybe you can't, sometimes, like, writing is like expressing yourself in a different way, and maybe where nobody can talk over you, when you're writing, it's just your voice, and that space that it allows you can really see and say and express things that maybe are harder to do on a day-to-day basis, and it can, like, help you get rid of certain things.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
It's symbolization. It's something that we see, throughout the human history, from, the Maya and the Inca and ancient Egypt, is symbolizing things in art, and even negative things, like all these faces and demons that they used to carve into wood and stone to represent the scary things and the scary thoughts that they had and the things that they feared. But sometimes if you put it in a form that you can look at and touch, you feel maybe that you're in control, and it helps you not fear it so much, or just
recognize
it. Yeah. So that's an interesting process also that is in art, is the ability to contain something, bring it to light, see it, feel it, maybe then own it a little bit, and then it's not as scary. Yeah, very cool. I use writing as a healing tool as well sometimes. For me, writing it's very, like, almost like a sensitive topic because it's so personal to me.
Yeah.
And it comes, it goes. It's not something that I try to do purposefully. And it will just come to me, and I'll write it down, hopefully, not always, and then I regret it because I forget it, and you know how it is. But it's very important. I think writing is a very, very powerful tool.
The thing that always, shakes me or makes me surprised about it is that feelings are often doubtable. And are often something that we overthink how we feel.
Right. We doubt ourselves.
Yeah. And when you're writing it down, all of the sudden, for me, it becomes real.
Yeah.
And I am able to read something I wrote a year ago.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, that's how I'm feeling right now.
It's so powerful.
And sometimes I'm like,
who is that person?
Wow, I've grown, you know. It's really a way to self-reflect and, like you said, understand yourself better and see yourself in a new light.
Yeah, for sure. I always want to do a journal, and I have one page, so many one-page journals.
Yep.
Where I bought a notebook and wrote in them one time. But I still want to do it.
Yeah.
Someday.
Maybe you're doing it, but with so many journals and one pages.
Yeah, but like I like start one every like 3 or 4 years, so it's not enough. I'm to count.
I get it. There is something in art that I am not ever being able to like pursue consistently.
Yeah.
Which is putting the art giving it enough importance in my life that it's part of my everyday routine. And the best artists do it. They
But that's something that's hard for me too, because once I like, it becomes stressful. So then I don't want to do it anymore, and I don't want to ruin those things for myself. And I mean, I feel you. It's hard to balance between inspiration and like motivating yourself and pressuring yourself and making something stressful to the point that you don't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So
that's
it's really a tough balance, and I think that's why it's maybe so hard to like be an artist sometimes, because you, on one hand, the creative process is very intuitive and fluey.
Yeah,
That's that word doesn't exist, but
fluey.
Like fluid and flowy at the same time.
Fluey.
It's fluey. And then to try and like force it or organize it into something that's consistent is very difficult. And it takes, I don't know how some artists do it like that, and how they're able to still be creative. And I think it's a known problem that artists have. They run out of motivation or muse, or they feel like they sold out. And I feel like in music, a lot of times that happens. Like, they always say like the first album is the best because it's the most like true to the artist, and then they get signed and they're, they have producers and big companies that try to make it more poppy or more traditional, and then it's not true to the actual idea of the artist and musician. So I think that's one of the toughest thing about art, is finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, and
but like you did, sometimes art doesn't have to be like so serious, sometimes it's just for you.
I think that's where you need to keep it and remind yourself, and me as well. I decided to start a Squarespace.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you. But I'm not doing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I am thinking about it.
I think it will come to you. I feel like when you're like a creative person, you gotta let it happen sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I said, like you can't force it, I feel. But maybe you can do an experiment.
There is a form of discipline that exists. And
somewhere.
And my very close friend, Ben Jacobson, he's a writer. He's so many things.
Yeah.
But I really asked him one day, like, how do you find the time?
Yeah.
Like, you work on 5 different projects and have a full-time job and write a book and edit music and photography for your fun. You know what I mean? Like, when are you writing this book, right? And he's been working on this book for years.
Wow.
And he's like, Jazz, at some point, I just decided that I'm going to write every day. And that's it. And that's it.
You
and
just have to make that decision.
And he said, and if you write about the tree, that's fine. And if you write one sentence, that's fine. But it's that discipline that some days you come to it and you're like writing 3 pages or a whole chapter. And one day you're just writing about your day, and it has nothing to do with anything.
That's interesting, because it's more about, okay, it's forcing yourself in one way, but in the other way, it's also saying it doesn't matter what you write.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be interesting. It doesn't have to be artistic. It can just be anything. But do it anyway. So then in the way it's like opening the door and whatever happens versus not even opening the door until you have the absolute urge that you cannot resist, you know? So that's an interesting thought. You know what? Maybe I'm going to start. You know what? No, maybe.
No, maybe.
Like Ben Jacobson. Ben, you don't know me, but I'm going to take your advice through Jasmin to write every day. How's that?
You know what? I'm happy somebody's taking that advice. And maybe by me inspiring you, you inspired me.
Yeah, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to give myself like a timeline. I like to do that. Like, it's not forever. I'm going to do it for the month. Yeah, for an entire month.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, there we go.
Well, we accomplished something this episode. I think this is a perfect time to conclude the art episode.
Yeah, I think we pretty much talked about it in every angle possible.
Yeah, and if you guys have any thoughts, let us know, of course. And Jacqui, I'm really excited.
I'm excited too. This is going to be interesting. I better grab one of those one-page notebooks that I have.
Hysterical.
Does anybody else have that? Like,
I have so many notebooks. Once I tell somebody I write poetry, you know what they do?
Buy you a notebook.
They buy me a notebook for my birthday.
Oh, jeez.
So I have a lot of notebook, guys.
And do you tell them you write on your phone mainly?
No, I say, oh my God, a new notebook. Thank you so. How did you know?
To add to my collection.
I have a collection.
Wow. And maybe you can give me one of your notebooks.
I would love that. I will.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And then I'm so particular about the type of paper I like, so I end up going and buying my own notebooks.
Wow. I have an addiction and obsession to office supplies.
I know. I love it.
It's like my thing, so I get it.
Yeah, whenever we start a new project, Jacqui's like, well, we gotta go get a notebook now.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
I like it. It's like a new page, literally.
Hello.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much, guys, and thank you, Jacqui.
Thank you. This was fun. Yeah. I always have fun.
Me too.
So, thanks for listening, guys, and tune in for the next one as well.
Yeah.
Every week. We're here.
We try.
Trying to.
We're doing it.
Bring you some good stuff.
Yeah. We love you very much.
Positivity.
Yes.
Alrighty.
And
bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Chutzpah_time. That's CHUTZPAH_time, where we post updates and reminders so you don't miss any of our episodes or shenanigans. We also are on Facebook and YouTube at Chutzpah Time Podcast and on Twitter, Chutzpah Time. Thank you again and goodbye. Thank you.